Welcome back to Call Me By Your Game, the podcast where I, your host, Connor McCabe, bring on a guest to hear from them about a meaningful video game from a particular moment in their life. This is episode 40 of the Call Me By Your Game co-op series, where instead of having one person on at a time to hear from them about a special game, I have a group of people on to talk either about a game that we all played in our past, a game that we've all played recently, or a mixed bag. And truth be told, listener, what ends up happening often is whatever Connor feels like playing, he asks a few people if they're interested in doing that too. And that's a lot of the times what these episodes end up being about. Like I said, this is co-op episode 40, and we will be discussing 2016's Firewatch from developer Campo Santo. If you're listening to this, chances are good that you are a $10 DJ Toad tier patron at Super NPC Radio. If you're one of those people, thank you so much for subscribing. This is one of your big bonus releases that you get every month on a certain Tuesday. I'm sure you love them. I'm sure you just love what you get there. So truly, thank you for your support. I'm really excited. I've started to map out the next year's co-op episodes, or at least a possible slate. So if you're along for the ride, I hope you're excited. If you're listening to this in the future on a free feed somewhere or on YouTube, thank you as well for listening. If you want to find more of this stuff, check us, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel, check us out on social media, or check us out on Patreon. There's a ton of options for you. What I don't do is I don't give you no options to support me. I give you too many. That's kind of my thing. Anyway, I'm so excited for this episode. A little bit of additional housekeeping up top. Some plugs I'm going to do is that if you are a listener to the show, leave us a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. Let us know what you're liking about the show. If you're an audio only listener and you want to check us out on YouTube, you can do that. There's a link in the show notes as well to visit our YouTube channel, where we have a video version of this podcast every week that comes out. You can check us out on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, and Blue Sky, to keep up with our brand new episodes, to hear about our guests and what they're up to, and to also see the gorgeous art that I make for every episode. And lastly, if you like this podcast, share it with a friend, whether they love video games in general or the game we are discussing for the main event today. But that'll do it for the housekeeping for this episode. And folks, like I said, these are co-op episodes. We got a group here, and I can't wait to introduce this wonderful cast of kooky characters, of which you won't be seeing their character models, kind of like in the game we're discussing today. See, that's my first actual tie-in. So first of all, please welcome Peloton commercial actor and writer Mike Christian.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I'm here. I'm out of the Peloton ad, and I'm here on your YouTube or whatever podcast thing you listen to this. I'm happy to be here. I can't wait to talk about Starfield all hour with these guys.
Oh, interesting. I think we got some wires crossed here, but I'm still happy to have you, Mike, a veteran of the co-op series. The only two you've been on, though, you were here for our God of War 2018 and our Ragnarok discussion. So
yeah, two
basically
very contentious episodes with a lot.
Yeah, no one had a good time. It was mostly fighting. But so you're a regular part of this series. You've been on your own episode of this podcast about 2 years ago. You're a vet, and I got to get you on once a year. So here you are.
I'm happy to serve and be of service to this podcast. And yeah, I'm never going to stop. I'll never stop gaming. I don't care where my life's at. I don't know what responsibilities I have. I'm going to play Starfield.
Well, speaking of which, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to introduce our other two members, but then we're going to talk a little bit about some non-Firewatch related video game stuff, because Mike, you've got some updates for us in your life. Second, I want to please welcome to the microphone writer and man about town, Michael McCollor.
I just finished with having a drink with the mayor in a downtown hotel.
Wow. What you really living up to your name here.
That's what I think men about town do. They just go to different places and have drinks with important people.
Yeah, it's a lot of socializing. A lot of people have a lot of questions about what does that guy actually do. But the mystery is part of it, I think.
And what's he talking to the mayor about?
Yeah. Is it business or personal?
Hey, I guess we'll never know. Because your lips are
I'll just
sealed.
tell you, it was business.
Oh, okay, cool. Mikey, happy to have you here, pal.
I'm glad to be here.
I'm actually at a bit of a loss trying to remember your last co-op episode that you were on. I could look it up, and I think I will as you rack your memory.
That's a great idea. I feel like there are some games that I played so much that I assume I was on them. Because when you mentioned God of War 2018, I was like, I was definitely on that episode, right? I played that game 70 times. Nope. Oh, don't think I was.
Look at that. Yeah, it's hard, honestly. I'm looking back at my schedule. I can't even. Oh, Neon White. That was the last one. In
Neon White's a
August,
good game.
Or sorry, July of 2022, co-op episode 25. Yeah, I mean, that was my personal favorite game of last year.
I get it.
Yeah.
I'm about to hop back into that. That's a rip-roaring speed fest.
It really is. Speaking of Neon White, I'm going to speed run my way to introduce our next guest. Please welcome our final panelist for this episode, artist and streamer Roxy Polk.
Hey guys, very excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me on, Connor. I am sadly not a man about town or a Peloton commercial hottie, but I love video games, so I'm here.
And you're a wonderful artist and a great streamer. You're a regular on this network of, formerly both Press X to Scream and Scary Basement, but also you're, about to live your best life and talk about a games club that has to do with Resident Evil.
Yes, I'm so excited. Resident Evil 2 Remake is one of my favorite games of all time, and finally we won on the podcast vote to get.
I love that that's how you see it. We won.
Yeah.
So I mean, as a listener probably knows, we, in addition to this, co-op episode, one of the other bonuses that people get as they subscribe to us on Patreon is our current games club. Whatever game we're playing that we go through in a book club style format with a fine-tooth comb, I might add. You get those episodes every Friday. If you're listening to this when the episode comes out, I'm looking at my calendar right here. Of course, we've wrapped up the Sonic Adventure Games Club, and now we're discussing Resident Evil 2 Remake. So yeah, that's what, and we also have like a free feed too, of our old Games Club feed, like the Zelda feed's out for free now. So,
hey,
Mike, are you a Resident Evil head at all? Have you played a single one?
Yeah, I played the original on PlayStation 1, and I was very scared, and it's impossible to control, which adds to the fear. It was a game that I always had and never could really advance in because it was too difficult for me at the time. I was pretty young, and it was just too hard. I couldn't do it. And then I didn't really play the series very much after that. I did have a roommate in college who had a GameCube and Resident Evil 4.
Sick.
And that was just
nice.
I watched him play the whole game, and I have played that one a little bit. But yeah, I was an OG Resident Evil person, and then I haven't really touched it very much, but I've been curious about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have two Resident Evil experts with us on the podcast here. What I will say is, Mike, we're recording this Friday, our first two episodes. I've played through our homework for those two episodes, and as someone who's barely interacted with the series, I gotta say, you should try this game and you have a PS4, so.
Yeah. Which one should I try though? Like what? Because I heard they got bad at like 7 or something, or 6.
6 was bad. 7 was like the beginning of course correction, and then after 7 it was 2 Remake. It just went on sale in the PlayStation Store. I believe it's $10 right now.
Okay.
Amazing.
And it's just so good.
Is the control scheme like Resident Evil 4? Like
no.
where it's like,
well, no,
it's over the shoulder, like third person shooter kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, it feels nice.
It feels more modern
in a way that Resident Evil hadn't till that point.
Like not tank controls.
Yeah, you can move and shoot also.
Yes, because Resident Evil 1 is truly insane. The control scheme. Couldn't do it.
Well, I had to loop you in, Mike. Had to ask you about that. Mikey and Roxy, I can't wait to talk to you two about that on Friday. And more than that, I can't wait to play more of this game because I've stopped myself because I don't want to get ahead and I don't want to forget what I've done. Mike, before we get into, some more stuff here too, before I offer you to plug stuff, I've heard through the rumor mill that you may have a new console on your hands and that you're just in a whole new phase of your life.
Everything's changed over here. I had my PS4 Slim for a long time. We do have the Switch also, but yeah, my roommate and I just went in together on an Xbox Series X, and we've got like 5 months of Game Pass Ultimate for free, and it's freaking nuts. It's really like I haven't touched an Xbox since my 360 Red Ring many years ago, but this is a really good system. The like quick resume feature is game changing. It's great. The AA batteries confused me as a PlayStation 4 guy. I was just very like, oh, what's happening? But I bought some rechargeable AA's. The internet told me what to do, and it's all happening.
I am surprised they have not moved past that, because that is 360 technology and they're still operating on AA batteries. Really?
It just felt like I understand nerds were telling me, they're like, it's actually better because for the PlayStation controller, once the battery dies, you have to get a whole new controller. And I'm like, okay, well, it just feels weird grabbing AA's.
Right.
Yeah, it's also probably makes it way heavier. And I have never had a PlayStation 4 controller die on me. I didn't even realize that was a common thing anybody had to worry about. But maybe I'm not gaming enough then. Maybe that's the answer.
I've often said that about you, Roxy. You're not gaming enough.
Well, Mike, I'm so happy for your new journey. What's like a standout game that you've played using Game Pass so far? Because I assume it's just Game Pass.
Well, we have Game Pass, and then my roommate bought Starfield, so we have that physical, but everything else is Game Pass. And honestly, I was a big Halo guy back in the day, and we've been playing the Master Chief Collection, and it's just great. And like, you're playing it, you're like, this game is still good. Like, whatever game, all of them. We've been bouncing around like ODST, Halo Reach, like all of them, and they're just great. The remasters are fun. The 2-player campaign couch co-op is just like, will always have a place in my heart. And I downloaded Infinite too, and they don't have the co-op couch campaign. Dude, I'm like, guys, this is what Halo is.
They originally delayed it from release and then eventually just scrapped it entirely.
The heck?
Yeah, rough stuff over there. Well,
I will say Infinite looks amazing though. It is, the single player is tremendous.
Oh man, like the narrative in that game is a mess, but I love the gameplay and like couldn't get enough of it.
That grappling hook is a jam.
Yeah.
I'll grapple anywhere.
Is that like an offshoot game, like a spin-off Infinite, or is it just like the subtitle for one of the numbered ones?
It's the newest.
It's like the newest main release.
Okay, so they're not numbering them anymore, I guess.
I guess not. Yeah.
Okay.
They're just putting concepts after it. Infinity.
Yes. Mike.
Halo emotional.
Before we talk to our other guests a little bit too, do you have anything you want to plug, whether you want to point people to social media or?
Yes, go on the hellscape that is social media and find me on Instagram at MikeChristian0, and you can see my web series Dinosaur Portals and some other short films I've done. And if not, you can check out Studio C season 17 on the BYU TV app. I was head writer on that. That's just coming out right now. Other than that, just read a book and turn your phone off.
Hey, very nice. Some selfless plugs there. McCollor, is there anything to report on the video game front? And if there's not, I'd love for you to plug whatever you'd like to plug.
Yeah, I'll talk about this a little bit. When Game Boy Advance first hit that Switch Online package, I was like, oh my God, I've never played Zelda Minish Cap. I'm so excited to have a new Zelda. It's in my favorite Zelda style. It's got a Wind Waker cartoon link. I'm all in. I played it and did the thing where I got just stuck enough that like I stopped playing, and for like a day or two later, couldn't remember what I was doing.
Oh no.
And dropped it. And have been afraid to touch any Game Boy Advance game until I beat that. So I don't know what it was. It was just I got a bug in me, and so 2 or 3 nights ago I said, that's it, Minish Cap, you're mine. And I sat down, I beat that whole game, and
whoa,
that's great.
one night, but it took me a while. Is that my favorite 2D Zelda? Is that crazy to say?
I've heard, that is strangely one that I don't have experience with, despite being my favorite series, but it gets a lot of love.
It's pretty good. It's pretty funny. It looks great.
Mm-hmm.
Has one of the best temples I've ever played in a Zelda by far. There's a sky temple that is.
Ooh.
So I'm excited to. You guys did a games club about it, right?
Yeah.
It must have been a Jeremy
hosted
jam.
that one.
I'm excited to go back and listen to it now that I know the whole story.
Which, of course, listener, you can find on our free feed. Search Super NPC Games Club wherever you get your podcasts. McCollor, do you want to plug anything today?
Yeah, I am about to go heavy on Twitch again, twitch.tv/secretblimp. Find me there. See what I'm streaming. It could be something new and interesting.
Ooh, gorgeous. Do you already have that new and interesting thing lined up? Or are you like, I'm undecided?
I feel like for maybe a year now, I've been like, I want to figure out exactly what my Twitch is. So I've had something cooking, and it's like, when you pour your eggs into the pan and it goes from liquid to middle to like done eggs. I feel like I've got just a slight wet coating on these eggs, like one flip and I'm going to be there. I know almost what I want to do with Twitch.
Hey, that's progress. That's what it looks like to me. Well, congratulations, McCollor, on this, graduating from the middle part of the egg. Roxy, welcome back. Do you have anything you want to say or report about your current video game adventure at all?
Yeah, I've been playing Dark Souls 3 lately, like with my brother specifically, because he is someone who's been obsessed with these games. The FromSoft games and like the Souls games for many, many years, I would just look at them from a distance and be like, that's really cool. I like the storytelling and the vibe and atmosphere they got. Never going to touch that gameplay. That's not for me. I hate it. It's going to be so frustrating. But that's just because I was doing it by myself. So doing it with another person has been like a lot of fun. Especially someone who like knows the game inside and out. I'm still dying a lot. But dying less than I would have thought. Because they are challenging and they can be punishing. But they're not really unfair.
Yes.
And there's like a lot of weird gimmick bosses. Like we fought a giant like decayed tree that is like has a bunch of egg sacs you have to hit at certain angles. And then the entire ground like caves in and like half of its health is gone and stuff. So it's like there will be weird strategic things where like if you didn't know to do that, you'd just be like whacking at its ankles and being like, why am I not killing it? So they do have like some gimmicky bosses as well as just like, here's a giant man with a sword who's gonna fuck you up. There's a lot of those too.
You know what? Both equally scary in their own way. Wow. Not only is Mikey making progress, but so are you, Roxy. That's huge.
Yeah, like I beat Bloodborne with my brother and a friend like a couple of months ago, and so now we're just kind of like going through all of the co-op Souls games. And like Bloodborne was the one where like the atmosphere was like completely my jam because it's like Lovecraftian horror stuff going on. But yeah, Dark Souls 3, it's very fun. The only thing I can say that I'm not enjoying is being invaded constantly because we're playing on PC. So it still has like a huge community of folks who just want to make your day worse.
Oh, geez.
But we did run into one really cool guy who had 2 shields equipped and didn't attack us. So very obviously he was like, I'm not trying to attack you. Here's shields. And so it's just like trying to lead us to like where you go next and like help us out. And then dropped items that like doubled my level.
Whoa.
Like no, and then pieced out and was like, bye.
Wow.
So
okay. Faith in humanity has been restored.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, truly. It was a very sweet experience. So it is definitely a double-edged sword, but I am enjoying it a lot.
Well, way to go. Is there anything you'd like to plug today?
Yeah, I'm Twitch streaming like about 3 days a week. My schedule's a little up in the air as I get things back under control after some family stuff I was dealing with this year. But Twitch stream's still going strong, and I have a web comic called Lacuna Break. That is going to be starting updates again pretty soon here too. And you can read the archive that I got going, which is just lacunabreak.com.
Exciting. Well, for all these plugs we had, I'll put them all in the show notes so the listener can just come find us wherever. Folks, we're going to finally get into our discussion on what we're here to do, which is talk about Firewatch. The way that I'm going to go ahead and kick things off first is set the table. We're going to do a little table setting in context, I guess some game history and context, about just some bare bones of what this game is. Although, I'm assuming if you're listening to this podcast, you've played the game or you're okay with story spoilers at a certain point. Because while I sort of think it'll come later in the episode, who knows when someone's going to bring something up. But without further ado, we're going to talk. I'm just going to go through some, very basic context. And folks, I'll probably turn to you as well to be like, did I forget anything? Without further ado, here we go. Firewatch is an adventure game developed by Campo Santo and published by the developer in partnership with Panic. The game was released in February 2016 for Linux, OS X, PS4, Windows, and Xbox One. And in September... and for Xbox One in September 2016, and it came out on the Nintendo Switch in December 2018. The story follows a fire lookout named Henry, who works in a Shoshone National Forest. Henry interacts with his supervisor, Delilah, using a walkie-talkie, with the player choosing from dialogue options to communicate. His exchanges with dialogue, his dialogue exchanges with Delilah inform the process by which their relationship is developed. Over the course of the summer, Henry and Delilah appear to be menaced by unseen forces and have to unravel a years-old mystery. The game was directed by, I kind of know how people were involved with this, so I'm not sure. This actually doesn't look that accurate to me. I'm reading from what I copied to Wikipedia. So the game was, directed by Ollie Moss and Sean Vanneman. It was also, stumbling over this a bit, written by Chris Ramo, Jake Rodkin, Moss, and Vanneman. So they had 4 writers, and produced by Gabe McGill and artist Jane Eng. The game's environment was modeled by Eng, based on the single painting by Moss. The design draws inspiration from New Deal advertisements by the National Park Service and field research conducted in Yosemite National Park. The game received generally positive reviews, earning praise for its story, characters, dialogue, and visual style, yet the presence of technical issues in the game's ending were both subjects of criticism. Firewatch won the award for Best 3D Visual Experience at the Unity Awards in 2016, Best Indie Game in the same year at the Golden Joysticks Award, Best Narrative at the 2016 Game Developer Choice Awards, and Debut Game at the 2017 British Academy Games Awards. And by late 2016, so, less than a year into its release, it sold over 1 million copies. So this game, I described it a little bit, and just on a very surface level, I'll go over it and I'll turn to you as well, you folks as well. You play, like we already said, as a sort of a fire watchman, Henry, who takes a seasonal job in this forest to keep an eye on fires. And the way that the story develops is through, there's a bunch of environmental storytelling. There's also a lot of dialogue with your supervisor, Delilah. But the game itself feels very simple in as far as the gameplay and interaction goes to me. You are interacting with the world. It is an open world environment in this forest. The scale isn't that large, but it feels open enough to feel big. As for you three, are there any bullet points as far as just like the bullet that we should include to describe this game, or any notable things about it before we get into our actual discussion?
The thing I noticed about this game is how much that you don't really get on one playthrough. It's how much these dialogue choices really affect things. To the point where, like, I remembered a lot of broad strokes about this game, and the second I turned this game on, things were very different than how I remembered them. To the point where, like, there are some big story things, like even some jokes and stuff that, like, are kind of memes about this that I completely missed just because of the kind of choices I was making.
Interesting. I am going to put a little bookmark on that because I think that's something we could discuss a lot later. Yeah. And that's honestly helpful to hear from someone who's played the game multiple times, because this was just my first. Did anybody else have any like bullet points that we should include about this game? Some bare bones stuff before we get into it.
I mean, kind of just to add on to what Mikey was talking about, just like the dialogue is so important in this game. The choices you make while you're on your walkie-talkie are like kind of the backbone of the whole thing. And like the two characters' relationships are just like the emotional backbone, as well as just like the functional gameplay backbone of things that you do, aside from just exploring. But every time you explore and find a thing, you're talking to her. So
yes, definitely. Very true. Well, speaking of which, let's talk about when we played this game. And I know that for like me and Mike, like I just played this game really for the first time recently. I will say, when I first got my Xbox Series S, I did play about an hour of it. As you know, because once you get Game Pass, it's so hard not to look through the whole library and be like, oh my gosh, where do I start?
I'm playing Firewatch Simulator. You know what I mean? Like everything's on there.
Yes, it's overwhelming in a sense, but this is a game that I had heard a bunch about, and so I downloaded and, like I said, played the first hour. I think I fell off for whatever reason. I don't know if Halo Infinite came out or if I went away for the holiday. But until this point, I had not returned to it, but played through it over the last couple weeks, finished it about a week ago. For me, it was maybe like a 5-hour playthrough or so. Mike, we had similar experiences where we just played this, and you even talked about playing it, I think, at my place earlier. That may have been off mic.
I played it in one sitting.
Amazing. Wow.
That's blasted right through it.
That's going to provide a different context for you too. So I'm eager to get through that. Roxy, I'd love to hear about, how you played this game for the first time.
So I played it for the first time at like a, I don't know, like video game party, like hangout thing where a bunch of us would get together and like play a bunch of games, maybe for like an hour or two each, and then move on to the next one.
Huh.
And so I was like playing this game with a group of folks at first, with us all like interacting with it and like kind of choosing the dialogue responses to do and all that. And it was something that we were only supposed to like play for maybe an hour or so, but we ended up playing it for like over the first 2 hours of it or so, because it was so engaging for everybody. And then since I didn't own the game at the time, I went back and then I watched YouTube videos to see the rest of the story.
Nice.
For it at the time. But so it was really great to be able to play through it on my own this time around and like make my own choices instead of like, by group decision. And I had forgotten so many things about it that it felt like a fresh playthrough in more ways than one. So it was very neat to be able to sit down and play it. And now we get to talk about it.
Very cool. Mike and I, of course, were playing on the same Xbox Series S for this one. What were you playing on, Roxy?
I was playing it on my PC, actually.
Okay, cool. I bet, that would be. I saw some playthrough of the PC version, and dang, it looks way nicer than the Xbox version.
I couldn't play it on like full. Sure. Like my computer isn't great. It is serviceable, so I had to like turn it down a little bit. But like the art style for this game is quite kind of simplified and sort of blocky in like a very artistically pleasing way. So I was still able to get it to look pretty good because it's not like this is photorealistic. It's stylized beautiful natural landscapes. So it did look very good. But
okay, cool.
Could look better. Awesome. On a better machine.
I definitely room for there, considering what you were playing on. Mikey, you talked a little bit before I think we started recording, but what's your experience like with this game and when you played it?
So I played it when it very first came out. This was I think my first of these walking simulator type games where the story really hit me. I was deeply engaged with it. I loved it so much. So I played it right when it came out. And maybe a year ago when I got my Xbox Series S and saw that it was on Game Pass, like I've always had it in my like ready to play list. Like I've been ready to go back to it. And so I was really glad for this opportunity to finally force me into it.
Huge. Yeah. I love it. So a 2-time player. Do you remember, like, was this a game you were anticipating when it first came out? Did you hear about it through a friend?
I don't remember where I heard about it, but I do remember like getting the vibes that like this was a good one and this was the kind of story, because I'm a big story guy, and story in video games is kind of my like my in through most of them. And this game had that kind of like it's got the same vibe that like Killers of the Flower Moon has right now, where everybody's just like this is gonna be great, right? We're all gonna sit down and love this, aren't we?
I was wondering where that connection was gonna go.
Yeah.
Very nice. That's great. I'm truly so glad that we have 4 like different, even though Mike and I are kind of similar, different perspectives on when and how we played this game. That being said, let's get into our discussion on it in the first place. I think where I want to start is, which is an obvious place, is the beginning of the game. So when the game kicks off, in order to get us to the main part, or the big chunk of where you're actually going to be doing something in the national forest, you get a bit of backstory on your character. But this, I thought, also was doing a couple really interesting things. As you, the player, are clearly like arriving to the forest and your station of where you're going to be, that's those moments of you just kind of like walking through parts of the forest for the first time are intercut with these not blank, but these essentially these dialogue choices, or these story choices that are presented to you in like a text-based adventure sort of format. Like you are fed some information about your past and you make some choices. And I was paying a little extra attention to this time, having played it, this opening at least before. But I'd love to know, like, Mike, this is your first time playing the game. Did you get anything out of this opening? Did you find anything particularly interesting or not?
I mean, having played the whole game, looking back on the way I felt during that opening sequence of like, walking and then you're answering the text questions, I think that might have been the part that emotionally affected me the most.
Yeah.
Like, I was feeling very emotionally connected to the game, and like, when the thing with your wife goes, she's sick, I was just like, oh, like this is really hitting me in the gut. And I think that feeling that I had there informed my feelings at the end of the game, which I am one of those people who was not super satisfied
Sure.
with the ending of it. And but no, it was great. And this is the first style of this game that I think I've ever played. And I was like, oh wow, this is really exciting. And I could see I made me excited about what this genre could be for other games too. But no, I really like that opening part.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's interesting. I think, yeah, the opening is very like emotionally affecting. That's what it attempts, and it was successful with me, and it sounds like Mike. And essentially with a story that it sort of like leads you through is your player character Henry, how he comes to meet his wife, how it gets into a lot of like the beauty of their relationship, some stages of their relationship, and then eventually how unfortunately it dissolves due to her it's Alzheimer's, I think she
early
has?
onset dementia.
Yeah.
Early onset dementia. Okay, so at a very young age in this game, I believe in her 30s.
Can I tell you about? Oh yeah, ask me.
Oh no, what were you gonna say, buddy? I was just gonna turn to you.
This was my biggest reveal, as it were, in this most recent playthrough. So Alzheimer's is like the thing that has affected my life the most. Like my grandparents, who were my all-time favorite people, both had Alzheimer's and eventually ended up passing away from it. So when I played this game in 2016, obviously I took in the information that his wife had dementia, but I did not internalize it to the point where when I turned this game back on, I was surprised it was a dementia game.
Oh.
And I think what's going to be so interesting for me going through this game again is like where I am emotionally with Alzheimer's has changed dramatically since that time. And I think it changed the way I played this game and changed the story I got from this game.
Oh, interesting. Like, and you're saying specifically this second time around.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Completely new game.
Interesting. I'm like, feel free to tug on those strings as we go through this too, because I would love to hear like how that affected this playthrough the more that we get into the game. From a like either you or Roxy, from like a gameplay or like kicking off the story perspective, did you have any thoughts on outside of that, I guess, on this opening at all?
One thing that I thought,
yeah, go for it.
One thing that was really like affecting, I think was a smart choice, is that you're kind of getting these dialogues in screens, right?
Yes.
A screen of text will come up. It'll tell you something, and then most of the times it will have two options, and then a little slash between them. You tell her she's pretty, or you tell her you like her dress, or whatever. Like, and they are different options that do change things. But then every couple of times, it'll be like, she gets a job in Connecticut. You don't want to move. And the answer, the only option you have is you don't want to move. Like every once in a while, it takes away control of you,
yes.
which feels very much how real life is. There are times that things just happen. And it's just like emotionally, I am not able to move to New Hampshire with you for your job. That's just not, that's how I feel. And the game like really funnels you into this like I think that's what I like most about this game. It's very, very real. Everything that happens in it is very real. Even when the things that are insane happen, they are handled in a real way, or at least the game gives you the option to respond with your dialogue choices in a very real way that feels super authentic, super like well observed.
Yeah.
That was, I think, where a lot of the heartbreak comes from. It's just like your wife is sick. You acknowledge that she's sick. You have to press the button to say like, yes, she is sick. I would love to have a different choice.
Yeah, that's something. I mean, where I want to go from there is something really interesting that I think you shared that I hadn't quite put my finger on. Because I was paying extra attention to the opening of this game and the choices and what they mean. You know, we've talked about like I'm taking a class right now on this whole thing. So like I'm a little extra aware of like how much does your choice actually affect where you're heading. And not that I need it to be a particular way, but I think there are things throughout this game of where a choice you make may not necessarily alter the story in a significant way. But again, I'm going to leave it to McCollor to comment on that because you've played through it twice. But what it would do is sort of add what I felt like was flavor or give you a chance to play the character how you would like Henry to be. Because I think you sort of have options, and this is more of getting into the dialogue later, but you have options to play this as like someone who's making jokes all the time, or you could play it as someone who's like a little less socially apt in a way. There's especially when now we can get into it later. Roxy, do you have any thoughts on like this opening, getting into it, again, for I think the second time?
Yeah, I think because the options you get, like Mikey bringing up that move one specifically, it was like, well, if it was me, I would just move because why can't you find another job there? But so you were trapped in like Henry's shoes trying to make decisions for him. And it definitely alters like your perception of him, or like you were saying, how you would like him to be. Like later in the game, you will get options to just choose ... not respond to things. And like the game does account for that. So like you said, you can be someone who's completely socially inept, or just doesn't want to interact with other people. Or you can be someone who's joking. And then also it changes your reasons for being out there. Because if you choose to put your wife in a home where she has like professional care, you just kind of drift from your friends. Her sister steps in and you're just kind of like avoiding her because you don't know how to deal with what's going on and just can't deal with it. But if you try to care for her at your house, everything becomes a mess. She's not well taken care of. One day he like leaves the door unlocked or something where she could get out and hurt herself. He gets a DUI.
Yes.
So like you literally have broken the law. And her family has to come and step in and be like, we are taking her back to Australia. You don't get to see her. So his reason for going and taking this job is literally because he has nothing else right now too. And like that decision has been taken for him. So it kind of like shapes your perception of him. Is he the kind of person who is avoiding his problems like this, or is he the kind of person who hit rock bottom and doesn't know what else to do?
I think because those two choices, at least in that specific way, and again, it's like really, it was really surprising to me how emotionally affecting this was, because I know we're talking about the game like we're in dialogue, but it's again just looking at a screen with some texture on it and text.
Yeah. And like you were also moving forward, so like he's hiking into the spot where he's going to be living for like the rest of the summer as you're progressing through his life. So it's like narratively with the text we're progressing, and also just like in the environment you are as well, which I think is a really cool like pacing that feels like it's moving you forward.
Yeah, I like that. I liked that as well. One moment too that I remember being conscious of these decisions you're making is there's the time where you can choose to like, you're choosing to get a dog, and it's like, do you want to get like a large dog that's definitely going to be able to protect you, or like a little dog? And this time I chose the little dog, and then you get robbed at a certain point. I don't know if it happens in both in both of those storylines, but we had this little dog who then like gets kicked and like he gets like hurt, and that moment like made me think, oh man, like my decisions like can have an impact in ways that I don't expect. And I don't know how significantly they did throughout the game, but that at least put that fear in me of like, oh gosh, like
I better get this right.
How you say it again?
I better get this right.
Sort of, or like what consequence am I like? What's the consequence if you take the big dog? Does the dog like be too aggressive and get killed? Like I don't know what it is.
It gets spooked and runs away. So
it
does not help you, but it doesn't get kicked.
Interesting.
Which is, it's sad. I guess you get the option then to scare off the mugger after that. I don't know if that also comes up with the little dog. But you can like,
yes.
Okay. Where you can like beat him up and be a violent person, or you can just like scare and threaten him to like get him to leave.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I beat the shit out of that guy.
You did? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I beat him up, and then I cried. That's what they said. Like he beat him up and then like felt bad about it while he waited for the police. Oh, that was very cute. I do think even like that initial choice between the two dogs, it's like, are you concerned for your wife and want to protect her, or are you like open and vulnerable and ready to give her what she wants? Like it said she loved the little dog. I was like, oh, I'll get her the little dog. I feel like my first playthrough, I probably got her the big dog.
Yeah,
I did. It was like, she loves the little dog, and I'm like, I gotta protect my wife.
Yeah, it's so I think at least early on, and there could be stuff later that is different from this, but the sense that I got was that your choices will not necessarily affect your ultimate destination, but they will color like how you feel about your character and that, you know, texture of journey for them getting there. There's more stuff like in the game later that I know I didn't do the first time that I did differently, and it was interesting to see how that played out. I'll tell you guys about that a bit later, but yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to touch on the opening a bit because it's something that I've seen skipped over before, and I think it sets up a lot for you, both how you're going to go about the game, but also a lot of the like emotional intricacies. Getting into the game itself, though, I would love to hear from us on how we felt about like being in this forest and this environment. Roxy, you had touched on the art style a little bit of like how this world is designed. Would you like to speak on that anymore?
Yeah, well, like Ollie Moss as an artist, I'd seen his stuff before, and it is like very clean lines and like big shapes and everything. And so it's very cool to see everything simplified here. And like your character, if you look down at you, you have like big, clunky, like cartoon hands, like kind of like square fingers and stuff. And everything is like sort of cell shaded. So it's like it's not complete realism or anything. It's stylized realism. And I think you were touching on those, what was it called? The like specific national park art from.
Oh, the, was it
the New Deal propaganda?
Oh,
of that.
yes.
Yeah,
It's still
it has,
propaganda, even if it's positive.
yeah, it looks cool. It does have that kind of vintage might not be the right way, but maybe sort of like a more vintage feel. And this does take place in like the 80s, I think, right?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
89 or something. Or
Okay. Yeah, so like the technology and stuff you're dealing with at the time is like boom boxes and walkie talkies, you know. Which is also very neat too, because then it's like, you know, setting you in a very specific place and time.
Every deer you see is carrying a boombox over its shoulder. Every single one of them. Yeah.
Got MC Hammer pants.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. Like the one funny thing I noticed about the art was that like looking at a landscape or something far off appeared to maybe, and it's probably because the art is at a further distance, it appeared to be more like grounded in that realism. Whereas, of course, the things closer to you, if you like, it's still, I found like really pretty. And if like I liked exploring the forest and being among the different types of like shrubs and whatnot. But yeah, it's a very deliberate art style. Mike, well, did you have any thoughts about like the game's art style, whether it's the color or like the things we've been talking about?
Yeah, I thought it looked beautiful. I was really into it. I loved seeing like, you know, the sun like going down and stuff like that. I thought it looked great. Like I will say, I think they could have had a little more animals in the forest
Yeah,
and
it's
things like
pretty
that.
quiet.
Yeah.
But you know, I understand this was a very small production making this game, but no, I was all in on the art style. I was like, great, make a big choice, loved it.
And Mike's note: more animals.
More animals.
Did you witness the raccoon? There's like a raccoon side quest.
I don't know.
I don't know if I saw this either. What is this?
Okay, like if you leave a candy bar, or no, it's like a granola bar, a raccoon will find it and like try and get it open. You can like encounter him trying to do that. If you get too close, you spook him off. And then there's like a spooky, like kind of burned out hut that you can find later, that the raccoon is also there too. If you encountered him before, he'll follow up there.
Oh my goodness.
It's very easy to miss. I didn't even know about it the first time I had like played or watched parts of it. So it was very cool to find it this time around.
You said side quests, and I was like, I didn't even know there was like options for like a whole moment like that you could miss.
It's like an achievement. So if you're like going to platinum, whatever the Xbox version of platinuming the game is, you'll have to find him. But yeah, I found him too, and I think you can get him to like attack you.
He's like hiding in a stove or something, right? If you open the stove, he like jumps at you.
Oh, I didn't see him in the stove. I saw him just outside, and I was like, oh, I got to take a picture of him, and I couldn't. I took 0 pictures this entire game. That was the first time trying to remember how to pull my camera out.
Man, I wish, because I found a few granola bars in like they're not lock boxes, but like the little supply
bear stands.
Yeah, caches or
supply cache. That's what it is.
Where you also find a dinosaur bone that never pays off. Oh my
God. It's a bummer.
Not even really the antler or the bear stuff. Like they like allude to like bears a bunch.
Yeah, I don't know if there is like is there a bear side quest, quote unquote, or achievement or something?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I've come across no bears.
Bummer.
Dang.
Also, do the photos appear anywhere that you take?
I don't know. I was expecting
the end credits, I think.
They do.
They're in there.
They'll show.
Oh, that's a good little touch. McCollor, you were talking about the pictures. You have a few equipment items in this game that you have. Like you carry around a compass, a map. You can eventually you get like a little like what's that meter detecting?
It's a true gizmo. It's like a 1980s science fiction gizmo.
It looks like something that the Ghostbusters would carry around. But there's a bunch of gear, and including a disposable camera that you find. And I started at a certain point in the story, you start to become concerned over a couple of missing teenagers that you encountered at the lake. And I was so concerned with like what was going to happen because your supervisor doesn't tell the truth about it. I started taking pictures of like all the evidence I could find, whether it was like,
oh,
yeah, like just I was like, I don't know if this is going to have a functionality, but I was sort of role playing in that way of like, if I get taken to jail or something or get like arrested, I want to have photo evidence that someone else was out here, sort of thing. But I don't think they have, I mean, outside of the credits, a functionality really.
Yeah.
Yeah. McCaulor, were you about to say something?
It does get into like what kind of story we're telling, right? Like, Mike, I know you said you were like kind of disappointed in the ending, and I don't know how far we want to jump ahead. It does feel like so much of it is set up. Like there are like tiny little anti-climaxes throughout this game to inform us that like it's going to be the kind of story that's is ultimately about a man processing his grief and how he, and you get to choose how he processes it. But like going through this time, I knew that the investigation of the little, you meet some teen girls early on and they yell at you in a way that again, now that I'm like looking back on it and looking at it I'll tell you, my big dichotomy between my first playthrough of this game and my second playthrough of this game is that I processed and I'm less afraid of the concept of dying of Alzheimer's.
Oh, wow.
So much of what I was going through in this first playthrough was about avoidance. And Delilah is a great source for avoidance. Like the first playthrough, I was all in on Delilah. Anything Delilah had to say, I was either flirty or not even making jokes, but like being emotionally honest. And the way that I was emotionally honest in this initial playthrough was that I was in love with her.
Yeah.
And I think I might have been in love with her as a human being.
She's charming.
She is. No, it's an incredible performance.
Yeah.
She's funny.
So
she's like flawed in like very clear character specific ways. This second playthrough couldn't have given less of a shit about Delilah. I was just like moving through. I was just like, I was being really, really honest about Julia, Henry's wife, which I'm confident I wasn't before. I was so afraid of talking about Alzheimer's that I just avoided it. I talked all about her this time. I just told her everything. And so she kind of knew there was no romantic situation going on. And even when it did kind of turn romantic, it was just like fun and stupid as opposed to like emotional balm that at that point in my life I needed.
Yeah. That's so interesting to me. Like just the way that like I'm just so curious as to how we all played this game too. Like Mike, being your first time playing a game like this, looking back, can you assess how you were making decisions on how to like respond or talk to this person? Were you just having fun? Were you like, oh no, I want this?
I mean, I'm coming off of like many hours on Starfield, so I was like, okay, romance opportunity. Like I know, I was just like, let me just try to say what she wants to hear. But no, I don't know. It's interesting hearing Mikey talk about this because what you're saying was like the game is more about the journey that you're going on as the game during the gameplay. It's not interested in like the story arc in a more traditional storytelling sense because again, I don't know if we can spoil the ending, but
yeah,
like,
I mean, if we want to dip into stuff like green light.
It doesn't really pay off anything in my mind that was being set up in terms of like if this was a narrative arc, if this was a truly just telling a story. It was more about like putting you in the shoes of a person and watching like your attempts to deal with what you're saying of like how do you react to this, what are the things you say going through that, which is interesting. And I don't want to be harsh on the game. I just think from a storytelling perspective, the way that there was so many interesting ideas set up and so many cool little things here and throughout that I was like, ooh, can't wait to see what that is or how he processes this or or just learn more about Julia. And you don't get any of that. It's these two kind of side characters that they're talking about. They're like, that was his son and he died and then he went cuckoo. And you're like, oh, okay, but what about me and my whole thing? And it's not interested in that.
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts about this. Because at first I was also like, when you get to the end of the game, and you finally reach Delilah's tower. You're like telling her to wait for you because you're being rescued. There's a fire that's out of control eventually at the end of the game, and you need to be evacuated. So I kept just being like, I really wanted to see this character, and I'm sure that's a whole draw of the game is like you'll finally, because even the girls you interact with are like out in the lakes. You can't really see their faces at all. You can't see their faces at all.
Or Connor, you said you couldn't see their naked bodies. Is what you texted me.
Yeah, I was like, what's up with this? Is this a I feel like this game is glitching.
You're like, I found their underwear. What? How?
Yeah.
How can I not?
You want to talk about an anticlimax?
Yeah, gosh. You don't see the kid's father at all, who that's you eventually find out is that mysterious figure. You don't see anyone. So I was really wanted to see her at the end, or to have some resolution there. And I think where I stand now, I think I both agree and disagree with you, Mike. I think I agree with you in the sense that if this game is about like avoiding grappling with the emotional distress that you do have and the issues that you are going through, like Henry has, like, you know, instead of dealing with the stuff in his life and his emotions, he leaves for this seasonal job, and then everything throughout this game feels like a distraction from that. And on one hand, I think that, I actually am satisfied by the ending, because it's Henry is once again let down and realizes that, and this could be me imprinting like what I was feeling as the player, so I'm open to that. It feels like the journey is eventually him realizing I need to actually deal with my problems as opposed to avoiding them. But that being said, I think if that is true, if I am correct about that or whatever, that it could still be dissatisfying because your character doesn't do that eventually. That's where the game ends. But I don't know. I'm a little up in the air about it. Roxy, do you have any story thoughts or want to weigh on what we're discussing here?
Yeah, I felt pretty similarly that it was kind of a letdown, but it's like intentionally a letdown. Like, I think the devs wanted you to feel that way, which doesn't make it any better to experience. It's like, okay, cool, that's effective, but I wanted a mystery thing that you set up, so thanks. Okay, great. Fuck me for wanting something more. But I mean, it's getting that emotional reaction out of you, which I think is what it wanted to do. But yeah, man, I want some weird sci-fi setup thing, some weird bigger conspiracy to be going on, as well as working through my grief as Henry.
That is something we haven't really talked about. Like, the bulk of this game is like a science fiction detective story.
Yeah, where like people are following you. There's a weird guy in the woods. These teenagers have disappeared. This dad and his kid disappeared. You don't know if it's related. There's a rogue bear they talk about.
Yeah.
There's this like mysterious equipment. Lying?
Yeah.
Delilah's like kind of like conspiring against you, and then
there's a weird red herring conversation where she's talking to someone else, and it feels like she's talking about you, and like you can choose to say that you hear it or just like listen in and then either call her out on it or keep it to yourself about that too. And then like, who is she talking to about what was that payoff? Nothing.
Well, so, and that's why I feel like this game, like on second playthrough, you're like, oh, they were setting this up like very early in the game. You are coming up a hill, there's a man with a flashlight. Moment, and you like radio it into Delilah, and you're like, there's somebody out here and they're watching me. And she's like, I'm sorry to tell you, they didn't tell you about this job. It is outside. You are going. Other people are also outside.
Yeah, she downplays it.
That was, I think, this game's thesis statement. It's like, wow, this sure seems scary or weird or interesting, but the answer is the world. The real world is still there. Don't think about it too much. But you're exactly right, Roxy. Like, as you're going, you're getting these cool science fiction breadcrumbs. Like, who's setting up all these fences? What's the secret? There's so many secrets in this game.
And people are like documenting their conversations, and like you think that they're being framed for the disappearance of the teens or being framed for setting the fire and all this stuff. And I feel like then also when you get that emotional gut punch of like this kid who Delilah's been talking about, who was like just nice nerdy kid whose dad brought him out here and he didn't belong here and just wanted to go home, but like she didn't tell the park service that he was out here, so she feels like responsible for when you find him dead. That felt like kind of, by the time you learn that, I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's what happened to him, huh? That sucks. But it felt like a lot less impactful than I think I wanted it to be, or like less purposeful. It was quite sad though. But like Henry doesn't have as much of a connection to it, and like you don't know, like Delilah assumes that his dad killed him, and in a way he sort of did. He pushed him to do things he didn't want to do and wasn't prepared for, and didn't double check his kid's equipment, and he fell and he died. Yeah. And with this guy, you have like the ultimate avoidance in grief and dealing with your problems, where he literally becomes a paranoid hermit for years. And then when he gets found out for what he's done, like he didn't even care about burying his kid. That's how avoidant he was. He wasn't going to like bury his own child or let people know. We don't know what the deal is with his mother or if his friends, but as far as everyone else knew, he just disappeared off the face of the earth. And then that's what the dad is going to do. He's going to go further into the wilderness where nobody can find him and not answer for anything he's done. And you guys can't do anything about it because you're just avoiding getting burned to death by the fire. And all of the evidence, including maybe his body, could be completely incinerated by that point.
Yeah, that was the moment too. I'd love to know from you all, when was the moment that it clicked with you, like what was going on? Because for me, I think it was the moment they intended, which is when you are, I first of all, I was so happy that eventually we got to explore the cave that's like locked. I was like, ooh, finally. And it, of course, introduces one of those scary moments where you go in and then someone shuts the gate on you. And like, I had like a real, and of course, this all is kind of undercut by, learning what's going on later. Although, I don't know, I think you could argue it's no less scary to have some scary man out there than it is a mystery. But when you're exploring the cave, you're finding the shoe, you're finding this, you're finding that. When you stumble upon Brian's like old little hideout with all of his school stuff and his drawings and whatnot, that's when it finally clicked for me. Like I felt so behind. Maybe that was when it clicked for you too. But I was like, oh, wait a second. There is no scientific mystery. It's all falling into place. And a lot of what Roxy just explained, it's the parallel between like Henry almost is seeing like, oh no, is this what I could become if I let this avoidance spin out of control, which I did like, but for a while I was like, what is this mystery going to be? Do I actually have dementia? Am I an unreliable protagonist? I don't know. Any thoughts about that for you, Mike, in general?
When did I kind of realize that it wasn't gonna reward me for all that story wise? I guess it was around. I think when I saw the kid's body, I was like, all right, this is the whole thing. I was like, we're not topping this. And then you go to her tower and she's like, you're in my tower, and he's like, no, I'm not. And then you run up and no one's there. That was a moment where I was like, I really thought I was going to meet somebody there. I really thought I was going to find somebody. But again, I really don't want to. I feel like I'm being way too critical on this game because, like, I bet you this is super small, this production, and it is.
I think it was, very small team.
And like the amount of discussion that we're having about it is, I think you've made some nice art here that we're all arguing about and having strong opinions. But just doesn't give you that little treat at the end of a satisfying story.
Which again, I think that was what they wanted, which is like, okay, you guys accomplished it. So like, good job on that front. But you don't have to like it.
Totally.
Someone's like, my short film's about boredom. I wanted to evoke boredom. I'm like, okay, well, you did, and I don't like watching it.
Yeah. It's funny. I think like I didn't expect to be as satisfied by the ending as I was. But it's one of those things where I totally understand like why you or other people would be like, no, it just didn't have the payoff that was satisfying to me. McCollor,
I still recommend the game. I still think people should play the game. 100%.
Yeah.
McCollor, did you have anything about like the overall like story or mystery or anything that you haven't gotten to share yet?
I had a wild situation this second playthrough where like my broad strokes memory of the game is that there's kind of nothing going on, and you're gonna go and try to meet her at the end, and she's not gonna be there, and that's the like. That's this game's The Prestige. The Prestige is you think you're gonna finally meet her, and then she's not there. But I, halfway through this playthrough, got to the point where Henry finds the clipboard with his and Delilah's recorded conversations typed out.
Yes.
And I was like, I don't remember this. And how do you explain this? Like, I kind of forgot there was this. I remembered there was a little boy who died.
Yeah.
But I'd kind of forgotten this like extra level of his father and his kind of like machinations. So I was like, have I done something so different that I'm going to get a whole new ending? Like, I thought there's no way you could just say this is a deer research facility, which is what I think the big facilities you end up finding are ultimately explained as, even though I don't remember ever getting that actual explanation.
Oh, gotcha. I see.
I don't actually know what those were for either. They just said like researchers, vague researchers of some kind go up there, I guess.
That's another, like, when we talk about side quests. Go ahead.
The big antenna to send up the deer info.
It's very important.
It's a lot of info.
The side quests in this game are achievements. And so I was like poking around at what some of the achievements you can get are. And there's some sort of little like, you find a deer with one of their trackers on, and that, and maybe you find some sort of note that says like, oh, it was that whole experiment, that whole situation was to study like the patterns of deer migration throughout certain seasons. So it's like, that's a big nothing burger. The kid dying is sad, but it's not a science fiction conspiracy.
Yeah, and it's kind of like Delilah's thing more than Henry, who is discovering it. So it doesn't feel as connected to your character.
And I think that's intentional too. I think that everything that's happening in this game is about distractions from your real life. And it's so fun to chase a question if you're afraid to turn around and look at what your life is.
You know what's interesting though, hearing you guys talk about like the achievement side quest things. When I was playing the game, I never got the sense that the game wanted me to just go randomly explore. It was always like, go do this, go do this, go do this. And I always kind of felt like, oh, there's a bit of a ticking clock, you know what I mean? And I never thought like, oh, I'll just go wander around, which it sounds like there's some interesting stuff to find if you do that.
Yeah, it does put like narrative pressure on you, especially during certain times when you're like either chasing someone or have to track someone down or the fire's burning. And if like I hadn't had the context of playing it and like kind of going through it before, I probably wouldn't have started poking around this time either. So I can see how easy it is to miss stuff like that, which is a shame. It kind of doesn't really let you go. It might be too scared to just let you go and then make you completely lost. So I guess maybe it's better to have the alternative that feels a little bit more guided than it is, or than it seems like it is. I don't know.
It does remind me of like, did you guys play Inside?
No, just played Limbo.
Limbo probably does it too. Inside, it's a 2D side scroller, so it's very clear like where you're supposed to go, but there are very specific moments where like if you go left instead of right, you find this little tunnel and it leads to, and there's like 8 or 10 like
secret ending, right?
Yeah, there's like little plugs you can find, and if you destroy them all, that's how you get the secret ending. And that's kind of how this game feels. It's linear, but if you specifically like, there's a fork in the road and they're like, go west, and you're like, well, what if I go northeast? And you find just a little narrative nugget. Did you guys find the cable car in the very beginning of the game that you end up taking at the end?
No.
You get this.
I think so.
I did find it, but I can't remember when.
You're like looking for the food supply. There's that mission that sends you like, you got to go get your food. And it's very much sending you to the right. And if you go left, you find the cable car that you'll eventually take at the end of the game. But he talks about it and he's like, you get another whole conversation with Delilah. Like, so can I take a ride and come see you? And she's like, no, I haven't even ridden it. Like you get another chance to poke at it. But it was one of those things that like I found and was like, oh, they did kind of like, I kind of like that. Like it's a main path game with just enough little secrets to justify it. But like if you skipped all those, you get the same game, I would argue.
Yeah.
Interesting. Even what you're sort of talking about here, I'm thinking about both of the times that I've played this. The 1 hour experience I had 2 years ago, and then this like 5 to 6 hour really sitting in it, luxuriating in the game time. And the first time I played this, I found myself getting lost often because the way that it works in the game is you have a couple buttons that, on the D-pad, I think that could just pull up your compass, but you could also pull up your map too. So your character is holding these things up. You can sort of see without like putting the map up to your face where you're heading, what path you're going on, if you're going towards the goal. The compass is so nice because it's always telling you north, south, east, or west. But if you run, which I sometimes I really tried to soak in the scenery in this game of just like walk around at times and like make sure I'm catching everything. But I got impatient often too. So when you run the map, like I think you either put it away or it's like, even when you're walking, it goes below your line of vision.
Yeah, there isn't like a mini map. It's like you look at it and then you walk, then you bring it back up to be like, was I going the right way? Okay.
Which like I don't know where I fall on it. I could see arguments for like, oh, that's cool. And it helped immerse me more in this like wilderness, like feeling and this job I would be doing. And it's less video gamey, but also you are playing a game. So I could see someone being like, just give me the mini map. You all understood that, right?
Yes. I would have appreciated
It was
mini map.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. McCollor gets it. Did on this sort of like exploration and wilderness level, did anybody have any thoughts on just like walking around or the environment itself? Like I really loved, because it's just so different from where we live in Los Angeles, folks. I mean, Roxy, I don't know how similar this like national park is to where you live, but
even less probably than it is for you guys, because you guys are at least in like a hot climate with some of these stone formations.
Yeah. But being in this world and exploring, I like totally was fantasizing about what it would be like to actually like McCollor, I feel like you especially were drawn in by this, but like you've got a typewriter, you've got your stove, you can explore, you can go to the lake, you can drink whiskey and flirt with like your cool hot supervisor over the radio. I just was curious if anybody else had some like fantasies about camping and stuff like that.
I played The Forest a lot. I don't know if you guys know that.
No.
Yeah. That game's wild.
It is awesome and weird. But yeah, like a lot of it is just you build a little place in the woods and you just try to like fortify it, and yeah, there's cannibals who eat you, but a lot of it is just being like, wow, look at this nice little little garden I made. And when I was up in that tower, I was kind of like, yeah, this would be a romantic way to write a book or do whatever.
Yeah.
I was into that.
There's very like cozy feel to your base, and like the things you find, like the turtle or any of the other artifacts, will like be up there like as you find it, so you're kind of like making the place your own, which is really cute. And like you get this 360-degree view of just like beautiful wilderness and what feels like infinite time to just kind of like do what you want to do. It is very nice. And I'm someone who doesn't really like camping. Like, I don't want to be in a tent out in the woods and be gross. So, like, the one drawback is it didn't seem like there was really a shower system. But other than that, it felt like a personal getaway that I would leave right now to go to.
He needs like a little, like at the bottom of his tower, just like a little open shower with like a fountain, like a spout or something.
Yeah, there you go. Then
one that he can rotate. So if he wants to protect his privacy or show off for Delilah back over
for her tower. I was like internally embarrassed by this whole time in this game. I thought I was like looking out to, I don't know if I think it's south. I thought because when I would talk to her on the radio, I would sometimes try to like look over there and just like see the light coming from her tower or whatnot. And like at the end of the game, when you actually go to where she is, she's north. I was not looking at her tower. Yes, I was looking at the wrong spot. I don't know who's in that tower, but I was sure given their tower silhouette the eyes the whole time.
That's disgusting. I too famously hate camping, and I was fantasizing about this, and I think it is just the fact that he has a cool little apartment.
Yeah.
In
the
a loft
wilderness.
apartment. Cool little
Yeah.
loft
More of a
apartment.
cabin style fantasy.
Yeah.
Getting paid, but not a lot of work to do. Oh,
it's like a tree house. It's a cool
tree house.
Yeah, it's like that childhood fascination to just have a cool little base. It feels like that extrapolated as an adult.
Yes.
Right?
Definitely. I liked how in that space specifically, I'm sure there's even more there's environmental storytelling throughout, but in that place it was really easy to clock it because oftentimes when I think maybe every time a new day starts, you're in your little loft tower, and then you go from there. So there would be changes throughout. The only one that like I can, McCollor was, I think it was you talking about making it your own. The only one I really clocked, I think, was like once you're like all conspiracy brain, he's got like his whole board behind, like all the windows are covered by like his conspiracies and thoughts, and then when you figure out what happened with Brian and his father, there's more information. But I'm trying to think, folks, are there elements of this game that we haven't quite touched on yet, or have we been pretty thorough as far as like little like some what makes Firewatch?
Something that was pretty big for me was this realization they do these really hard cuts to just like day 1, day 2, and then they start jumping. You get to day 7, you get to day 33, eventually you get to day 79, I think is the day of the fire. And it makes for such a perfect compact experience in a 6-hour game, but it also feels like, again, with that realism, is like, wow, this all happened to you your first day on the job.
Yes.
No, it was over the course of a long time, and they were slow, like mostly nothing was happening, and we only got to see the times when something happened. I thought that was like a really cool story choice to, again, keep that realism. Everything in this game is too real.
Yeah, it's very real. For me, one thing, and we've talked about the performances a little bit, but I do want to shout out Rich Sommer, who played Henry, and then Sissy Jones, who played Delilah. I thought they both.
Is that the guy from Mad Men?
That's the guy from Mad Men, yeah.
I thought I recognized his voice.
Wait, which guy?
He's one of the bespectacled Mad Men. With if you look up Rich Sommer, maybe I'll drop his Wikipedia article in the chat. Which I got to shout out Mr. Sommer. A, great actor, but B, I've seen him out at the picket lines, folks. That guy is out. He's out supporting. He was supporting WGA and SAG at the time, but now at WGA. So good for you, Mr. Sommer. But also here, like, this game made me want to voice act for games so bad. I was like, whether you're just like a little side character doing whatever, but if you could have a role like this where you are really getting to dig into it emotionally, it was very, very, very attractive to me. Roxy or Mike, maybe I'll start with you. Is there anything about this game you haven't got to touch on yet, or any last words you'd like to share?
Last words. I think this is a really fun little game. I was stunned to find that it was from 2016. I don't know, for some reason I thought it was like just came out.
Yeah.
And then maybe hearing that, I was like, wow, what's this team been up to? Like, do they have another game or something like that?
I'm waiting to hear. I don't think they've announced anything. I looked at their website, nothing yet.
They were like acquired or something. They were working on something for a long time, and then they got acquired, and that got pushed to the back burner.
No.
Yeah, they've been going through some stuff. I don't know any of the details, but I did know someone who was working there at one point who was very excited about potential stuff happening, and then left before even being able to publish a product because I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah.
But something.
To touch on this a little bit, it looks like the company was acquired by Valve in April 2018. And unfortunately, Valve famously doesn't make games.
This team is now making Half-Life 3.
Oh, okay, now
for the rest of their lives.
I'm crossing every finger I have.
I'm into it.
Oh, well, while we're here too, I did want to shout out that Sean Vanneman and Jake Rod. I mean, everyone on this game has worked in games before, but those two, Vanneman and Rodkin, were co-writers on the 2012 Walking Dead game. So they've got experience with like, you know, dialogue choices and stuff.
Yeah, ex-Telltale folks. That's right. Forgot about that.
Who did I interrupt to share that though? Was that
you interrupted me?
It was Michael. I'm so sorry.
But no, I just really great game. Great like Sunday afternoon kind of game. You can just like sit through and blast through. I really thought there would be a little more, especially with all those books I kept finding too, and like the sci-fi books throughout.
Yes.
They're just kind of there. But great game, great thing to break up your Starfield marathon with, and then go right back into Starfield and just keep playing forever because it doesn't end and it won't. But no, great. Please play Firewatch. Great game.
Yeah, and I mean the nice thing about this too is that it's on Game Pass. So if you have Game Pass and a console or a device that can play it, highly recommend it. I think it's like $15 or $20 retail, but it goes on sale too. So if you're interested in having this game, that will present itself at some point. Roxy, same question for you. Is there anything you haven't gotten to touch on in this game? But if not, I'll give you a chance to share some final thoughts.
Big shout out to Turt Reynolds, the turtle you
turtle?
get in this game. He's very cute and very funny, has a funny face, and I like him.
I missed the turtle. That was the big thing that like I missed the turtle, and I think there are other names you can name him too.
Shelley Duvall was mine.
Was yours?
That's a good one too.
Wow.
So, one of the playthroughs I was poking through on YouTube, his name was Bucket.
Oh,
the same name as your dog. Very sad.
Gosh, I don't even know where this turtle is, guys. I missed it too.
You missed the turtle too?
Gosh.
He's like sitting, his like shell, he's like curled into it, so you just see the shell like sitting on a rock.
Okay.
So he's very easy to miss.
I did notice like the little rocks that would be the rock sculptures that would be up, and I would try to like
cairns or cairns.
I guess, is that what those things are?
Yeah, where you stack rocks.
It's kerning, and that's the space between letters in a word.
And they say you should. The parks people say you should knock them down if you see them.
Yeah.
How come?
It might be a witch rules.
Maybe like it falls on an animal or something.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what the justification was, but I was like, great. That's all the permission I need. They're like, knock down these sandcastles. I'd be like, yeah.
Like, as if I wasn't doing that already. Roxy, did you get to finish your closing thoughts? I'm sorry.
Oh, I don't know. I think we talked about all kinds of fun stuff. I just want to mention the turtle. He's cute. Cool. Cute little guy.
Awesome.
I did want to give. I had my little like dementia wrap up.
Oh,
that I'm
ready.
I would
love to hear from you, McCollor.
Because like I said, I totally like was not in a place emotionally to deal with dementia in 2016.
Yeah,
and so the game for me was about chasing Delilah, and when I did finally get there, I was upset. But like I just liked it as like a interesting thing I hadn't seen in a lot of games. Just like it was almost a thumb to the eye of the player, and I was just like, this is a weird, cool choice. But this second time, and this is something that happened to me last summer. I went on a 10-day meditation retreat and got to the point with my grandfather where I was less angry that I lost him and more glad that I had him. And when I played this game, I was very much able to like talk about Julia with Delilah. She knew exactly what was going on with her right from the start. Every time we were like flirting, I trended more jokey, which is more like a distancing method than like
like
trying to pull her in. Exactly. Yeah.
I was trying to treated her too.
And then we have one night where we have phone sex. Did you guys have the same moment?
I
didn't have it on camera, but
wait, what?
I think so. She was like drunk.
Yeah. She was drunk, and you can say like, well, what would you do to me if you were here?
Yes,
and she says,
I
like,
do that.
Let me tell you.
Okay, I didn't follow that up at all. Okay.
So, and that's what I was like, oh, well, I got to see what she says if I say that. But like, by the end of this game, I was like, oh, this is a game about dementia and about having someone you love have dementia, because not only is it about these like distractions and about these like ways to turn yourself away from it. I felt like having a grandparent who I loved, who like couldn't remember me. First of all, the teenagers at the beginning, my response when they were like, "You're just a creepy pervert," my response just instinctively was like, "You don't know who I am. You don't know me." And I was like, "Oh, this is what happens when when my grandfather was forgetting me and was attacking me. It's like, if you knew who I was, you would never say these things to me. Like, you don't know who I am." Like, I was like, "Oh God, this is it. This is stage 1 of dementia." It felt like this job of sitting up in a tree and waiting for something bad to happen, seemingly in a way that will never end. That's dementia, baby. That's fucking dementia. You are just sitting there like, it's never bad enough. It's never so bad that like the government is after you or aliens are here. It's bad enough because you're just looking the thing in the face and it sucks.
Yeah.
A fire is a totally natural occurrence and you know it's going to come. The game's titled Firewatch, but it's just not happening. And when it does happen, it's so small you don't even deal with it. We have the June fire is what I call it. I think you can call it different things. But there's like a fire that me and Delilah are watching. Like that almost feels like how me and my grandmother used to talk about my grandfather. It's like, we know there's something really bad going on here. There's nothing we can do about it now. So I guess we just watch it. And that's why the ending hit me particularly hard this time, because that is very much how it feels when you have somebody who you love, who you have felt such distance from for this entire time they've been having this illness, and then you finally think that at the end of it you'll get some sort of big resolution. At least they'll die and you can actually feel sad in a way you haven't yet, and you don't. They're just gone and it's kind of empty. And that was, again, that's dementia, baby. That is exactly how I felt. I remember the night my grandpa died, I was just like, I don't feel anything because I've been kind of grieving for 3 years. So like, as I got back into this game, I was like, I was not ready to see this in 2016.
Oh, wow.
Now that I'm like willing to look it in the eye, I'm like, oh, these are all the feelings I was having. And it made me like so much more appreciative of this game and felt so well. Like they had captured, again, the worst thing that's ever happened to me, but just like stunningly in a way that like felt so truthful and honest and real. I couldn't believe what was happening in this game and how it felt like a completely different, brand new game the second playthrough.
Wow. Well, first of all, McCollor, thank you for sharing. That's really powerful and like kind of amazing what some distance and I'm sure like processing, whether intentional or subconscious, can do for someone who's gone through something like this, like you have. So thank you, dude. That's amazing. So I guess no one wants to hear about how I threw a boombox in the lake and pissed off the teenagers. Although I will say it's truly a funny small moment that I was like, I could just drop this on the ground, but I'm throwing it in the lake and then it comes back later anyway. For me, I ended up like really enjoying my time with this game. Despite like there being something in the, a little bit of my, a feeling of that we've shared already, which is like, wanting a little more from the ending. I had that, but I also feel like I understood it as we've talked about as well, and did appreciate it, and high recommend to anyone interested in this. And yeah, that's really all I have to say about it. Folks, that'll do it for Call Me by Your Game co-op episode 40. We have 40 of these freaking things already. This is crazy. All about Firewatch. And what I guess we'll do to close out is if we've got any plugs. I know we plugged up top, but I'd love to hear from my guests. First of which, Mike, welcome back, pal. And congratulations on your Xbox journey. I'm really happy for you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm just gonna plug Power Wash Simulator on Game Pass. Yeah, if you guys are trying to figure out something in your life or some creative project, just put on Power Wash Simulator and just turn your brain off and you make connections, man. It is therapeutic just cleaning off these houses. I highly recommend it. And
Dang.
Yeah, and if you want, follow me on Instagram at MikeChristian0.
Hell yeah. Well, thanks again for being here, pal. Can't wait to see what game I get you on for next year. Michael McCollor, welcome back, pal. Thank you for being here. And what do you want to plug today?
You can find me on Twitter at Secret Blimp and on Twitch at twitch.tv/Secret Blimp.
Gorgeous. Roxy Polk, my friend, thank you for being here as well. What do you want to plug?
I am on Twitch, Twitter, and Blue Sky, all as Red Mage Roxy. And I stream 3 days a week, so come hang out on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. Some of those streams are going to be Resident Evil 2, like we talked about before.
I want to tune in tomorrow when you stream. You know, we're recording this on a Wednesday, just to see like a pro going about it. Because I
feel like you're flattering me, but I have played a few times.
Yes. I mean, you know what you're doing, but like me, it was like such a process of like tiptoeing into an area, sort of sussing it out, leaving, going through an area, coming back. Anyway, we'll get into it on the club. It's an amazing game. I have been your host for this episode, Connor McCabe. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Blue Sky if you want to follow me on social media. There are links to those in the show notes. I haven't been streaming much, so you can follow me on Twitch, but it's been a while at twitch.tv/consiscool69. Once again, thank you to everyone who supports us on Patreon over at patreon.com/super NPC Radio, especially you DJ Toads. This is, I said already, we got 40 of these co-op episodes. You get one of these a month. So if you like this format, be excited for what's to come. And if you aren't a supporter on Patreon and you love this enough to where you're like, hey, I want to throw these folks a few bucks a month and get some bonus stuff, patreon.com/super NPC Radio. The tiers are broken down for you. It'll show you what we offer. And thanks for listening. You can find the show on Instagram, Twitter, and Blue Sky as well, as you can the network Super NPC Radio. But that'll go ahead and do it for this episode of the Call Me By Your Game co-op series. We'll see you on the next one, which for November, folks, we will be covering the original Psychonauts. So I'll see you then, and farewell.